In this video, let's take a look at some of the basic functions of Lumion and what what we can do with Lumion. Now, I've also linked a few videos that look at Lumion in detail, some tutorials that take you through the basics of Lumion. I would highly recommend that you take a look at these. These were done by Lumion themselves, so I would highly recommend that you take a look at these videos as well. But for this particular video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the basics of Lumion, and in the next couple of videos, I'm going to show you how to bring in a 3D Max file into Lumion and then move from that point onwards. So to start off with, when you double click on the Lumion icon on your lab computers, this will be the screen that you would see first. If you install the newer version of Lumion Student on your computers, like I mentioned previously, Lumion is free for students, so you can request a license and then get it installed on your computers. If you've installed it, you might see a different screen, but the function is basically the same. In Lumion 10, you should see some of these basic environments down here, and here you'd probably see new, save as, open, and so on and so forth on the top section. But for the most part, it's going to be the same thing. When you start Lumion for the first time, it's going to do a benchmark to see if your computer is compatible with the Lumion program, and you can also see that information here on the bottom. You can click on this computer speed icon and shows you what things are, what works for you. Now it says your GPU is good, your graphic memory, this is the maximum amount of graphic memory that you have, your CPU is good. So I think for our purpose, these lab computers are fine to work with, but you can rerun the benchmark on your computers. If you think it's not working the way that you want it to work, you can do that as well. So this section basically says that your computer is compatible with the Lumion program. Lumion is one of the programs that I haven't used that much, honestly, because it's a very resource intensive program, and it takes a lot of resources, so your computer may or may not handle Lumion that well, depending on the type of computer that you have. There are examples as well. You can go into the example section, and this one in particular, I would highly recommend that you take a look at this example, because we've looked at the Farnsworth house previously on modeling it and such, and you can see what Lumion can do if you go into this example to see what Lumion can do that maybe Unity can't do. So you can take a look at this particular example, any of the other examples as well. This, if you already have a scene, you can load the scene here, but since we're starting from scratch, I can go ahead and click on one of these templates, and there are different templates that you can get. The white one for basic modeling, a landscape with a mountain range and a sunset, and something with water and a night view here. And inside of Lumion, you can go and change the time of day as well. But let's go ahead and start with let's go with a mountain range and see what we can do with that. So just click on that, and Lumion is going to open up the scene, and right away you can see some of the really cool details about Lumion. You can see the grass, you can see the mountain range, kind of very similar to what we did with Unity, where we created the terrain and then we added grass, but Lumion does it automatically, and there are other ways to add these as well. If you go into this section, this is where you can create things, and we'll go into each of these menus and see what you can do. But before we move on to the things that you can do, you need to know how to navigate the Lumion interface. Now Lumion, the interface navigation functions a little bit different from the other softwares that we use. You can use the A, W, D keys. So the W key moves you forward, the A key moves you, A and D moves you sideways, and the S key moves you back. So you can navigate with these keys. Also, I would highly recommend that you use these navigation keys together with your mouse button. Now, these buttons are for a right-hander. A right-hander would use their right hand for the mouse and the left hand to manipulate or navigate the scene using the AWSD keys. But a person who's using the left hand would use the mouse with their left hand, and then they can use the arrow keys, the forward arrow, the backward arrow, and the other two arrows, the right and left arrow keys, to navigate. So it works both ways for left and right handers alike. So the right handers would use the WASDs, the left handers would use the arrow keys. Now it's important because you need to use both the mouse as well as the navigation keys in order to navigate successfully inside of Lumion. So for example, if you press W and then use your mouse, you can move, or using the right mouse button you can look around, and you can move around like so. Now since we don't have enough geometry in this, you can't really gauge where I'm looking, but if you press your right mouse key with together with your W and S and D keys, it makes it easy for you to navigate the scene. So when you navigate, it takes a little bit of time to get used to this particular navigation system, since it's all new to us. But when you're navigating, just make sure that you're using both the mouse as well as the keys. It makes things easier. You can scroll in and scroll out, and that helps somewhat when you move around as well. And pan, the middle mouse button does a pan as well, so you can move your mouse like that. Now my image seems a little bit grainy just because I'm using the Computer Labs computers. I wanted to show you how to use this using the Computer Labs computers, just because I'm assuming that's what you're going to use. So the navigation is easy as that, and then you can use your mouse buttons to move around. You can scroll, and if you press the O key and use your right mouse button, what it does is it orbits around an object that you selected. Right now, since we don't have any objects, it doesn't really make sense. But if you had an object, like let's say you brought in the cottage and you selected the cottage, and if you wanted to orbit around it, what you would do is you press the O key on your keyboard, and then you use your right mouse button to orbit around that particular object. So a little bit different in terms of navigation from the other softwares, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And if you take a look at the other tools that we have on this side, we have a couple of tools that you can use. There are objects that you can bring in. You can import objects, and the cool thing about Lumion is it supports a lot of different types of files. Now, as you can see, all of these file types, I've tried to use these just to see how it works. So the cottage that we made, it can be brought in as a max file itself, so you can just save it. But the best option is exporting your max file as a FBX. And I'll show you that in a different video. I'll show you how to export it as a FBX. The FBX is the best option when you bring in your file into Lumion. Then you can bring in a 3ds, any type that you want. If you drop this down, you'll get an idea about what file types it supports. So the DAEs, the FBX, the SKP, so you can bring in a SketchUp file right away. And also it's really important if you're using SketchUp, SketchUp has a Lumion plugin, so you can download that extension onto SketchUp, and then when you make a change in SketchUp, it automatically reflects in Lumion. So that's really cool. That's a really cool function of Lumion. So it really works and talks back with the different softwares really well, especially SketchUp. If you're modeling something in SketchUp, you can bring it here and render it out if you don't have Enscape, or if you want to add more dynamic objects. And I'll show you the different dynamic objects and what we can do differently in Lumion than other rendering softwares or engines. Then we have the DXF, DWGs, the Autodesk, AutoCAD files, the Collada files, the DAEs, the FBX, SKP, Max 3ds objects. So anything in 3D format, basically, you can bring it into Lumion. If not, you can translate any of the other 3D formats in 3ds Max and then bring that 3ds Max file into Lumion. So that's a really cool function of Lumion. You can bring in basically anything. And then you can see all the imports here. what files have you imported. You can see those here. There we are. So this is the file that I tried to import, the small cottage that we created, and also a table that I just wanted to see how it looks like in 3ds Max format. So you can bring in anything and then place it like so, and I'll talk about this in a bit, so I'm not going to place it right now. Well, I can place it, but it's not going to look the way that I want, but I'm just going to place it since I already have it here. And once you place it, it's going to show you multiple objects, and after you place it, just press escape on your keyboard to move away from that command, and then you can just I'm pressing O because I've selected it, and I can orbit around this object. It's being a little bit slow just because I'm using the Computer Labs computers. Otherwise it shouldn't be this slow if you're using your own computer. And then on the top, before I go into all of these, I can take a look at some of the other things that I have here. Now I have materials, so you need to select a section of your building. Now how it selects the section is by material, and that's why I said it's important in 3ds Max. Before we bring it in, we need to assign materials to our building. So this wall is automatically taken just because it's a wall, but if you go into the windows now, if I move into the window section here, windows have two different types of materials. You have the glass and you have the wood or the timber frame around it. So we need to make sure that we've applied the correct material appropriately before we bring it into 3ds Max. Otherwise we won't be able to apply the material that we want. If we try to apply a material here, both of these would get the same material. So we need to make sure that we've applied the material correctly. So select an object, and then you can go in here and then apply different materials. Right now this one already has a material. I've tried to add a material, but you can go in and try out different types. Now outdoor materials, so indoor materials, you have different tiles. You can change the tile and such, and you can move in and you can see the different details I have here. And those are the things that you can add in terms of material, and we'll go in depth in looking at materials and what we can do with materials later on. I'm gonna here, when you apply a material, make sure that you click on the save changes, otherwise it's not gonna apply that material onto your object that you just created. So I'm gonna cancel the change right now. If I click somewhere else or press escape, it's not gonna apply the material to the surface that I added. So make sure that you click on the check mark. Then we have landscape, similar tools that we saw in Unity. You can raise, lower the terrain, so you can go here and you can basically, I guess that's gonna be a little bit too much, but that's how you raise your terrains. I'm gonna undo that. Let's undo that as well. I don't want that. And you can also change the brush size and the brush speed and all those fun things that we saw in Unity. It's the same thing. You can lower it, then you can flatten a surface. If you have a surface here, you can flatten it. Then you have other things as well, like water. You can add water. Let's see. So you can add water, and then you can make it bigger if you wanted to. Change the type of water. You can change different types of water. So it's really cool. Try it out. Have just experiment with different types of water, different types of things that you have here. Then you have ocean. You can create an ocean. You need to switch on ocean. So well, that's probably not ideal. Building is underwater right now, so we might not want to do that. Let me go back. So let's switch off ocean. We don't want ocean. We are on land. So we can switch on ocean, and then we can paint terrain as well. So if you want, let's say, a sandy patch here rather than grass, you can do that. Just paint it over. I think this might be a little bit easier than what we did in Unity. But see. Can add, and then you can change the size of the brush and make it a different texture. So as you can see, And then there are other things that you can do as well. You can also go to edit type and change the material. So there are so many options in Lumion. It's just a matter of having something in your mind, and it's not out of the box stuff, or you can create custom stuff quite easily in Lumion. So it's and you can toggle the rock off and on the outside, and then you can even change that setting here. So if I want to have something like that, see that changed the setting, the mountains change. So that's pretty cool. When you go into street map, that's a different thing altogether. We're not going to talk about that. Then we can add landscape, grass and such. So let's go here, and we can add, say, flowers. If you want flowers in your environment, you can add flowers in your environment. It's not going to show up there. Let's move in a little bit, and probably you might see there in your landscape. And random size. There you go. So you see these, the spread. Let's remove the spread a little bit. Then you begin to see this, or the landscape changing. You can add other elements as well. Like if you want to have rock, you can add that in, and you probably, if you make these bigger, you probably see these pebbles. It's not going to be very evident when you add these, but that's the whole idea, to make it very random, to make it look realistic. So you can add other stuff here. Just try out the flowers, and again you can make it bigger so that we can see. And then there you go. So you have these purple kind of flowers around. So like that, you can change the landscape in so many ways, and it's not out of the box. As I said, it's very you can create customized scenes quite easily. And that's about the landscape. And then if you go into the weather, you can change the weather, the time of day, the place of the sun. You can make it dark, you can make it night. There you go. We don't want it to be night. And you can also, there you go. You can also add clouds, more clouds, less clouds, no clouds, whatever. Then the lighting condition, you can change those as well. You can change the type of clouds that you have quite easily. So that's this panel here. You can do a lot of things in this objects panel as well. You can go into nature, and you can add trees. There are different types of trees that you can add. Just click and add your tree. There are so many different types of trees that you can add. You can add any type of tree that you want. Just select, and you can also if you have an idea about what kind of tree you want, you can just search using the search bar as well. I have no idea what to search, but let's say an oak tree. Even if you just search for one type, there are different type of oak trees that you can bring in, like huge oak trees. So try this out. It's pretty cool. It looks really nice. The shadows are dynamic, the trees are dynamic. As you can see, these are moving in real time. So this is a real-time rendering engine. You can go to grass. You can add different grass plants around if you wanted to, like so. Right. And there are other stuff that you can add as well. So there you go. So try this out. And there are leaves to give it a more realistic effect, like having leaves on the floor, leaves on the ground, different types of leaves on the ground. So once you're done, you just press escape, and then you can see it looks pretty realistic. I'm just moving using my mouse keys. I'm just moving to see how it looks like. It's like that. Try this out. You have tree clusters, you have rocks if you want a rock formation in your garden, cacti, flowers, broad-leaved trees, and you can favorite these so that it's easier for you to find the trees as well. So that's just trees. If you go into transportation, you have different types of buses, cars, trains, you name it, you have it. You can bring in those in. I'm going to add a bicycle here. There you go. and press escape to move from that point. And if you want to move something, move an object, just select, make sure you're in the select tool, select that particular object, and then you can here you have the functions of the selection and move. So now it says free move, so I should be able to move the bike wherever I want to move it to. And then also if you just say move up, it makes it easier to move the bike slightly up and down, so it's embedded in the rock, which probably is not right. And then you can also move it horizontally, or you can type in also a value. Now this should be 0.0, and then we can also, once you select the object, you can change the color of the object using this. You can add lights. So there are so many things, so many additional options that you can add to the objects that you bring in. Then you have people. So let's see what this does. There are so many different types of people that you can add. You can add a walking person, you can add just a standing guy just wondering why he is there, and then you can add women, you have boys, you have girls, you have pets, so many things. Let's add a dog here. So there's a dog, and in a later video we'll also talk about how to move these people. And I mean, this looks weird that this person is walking in the same position, but we'll see how we can create pathways so that this person moves around a certain pathway. This dog doesn't really just walk on the same spot. We can make them walk around a certain pathway. We can do that. Also, when you select, if you go and select a person like this, you can select the person, and then you can change their clothing. Well, you can make them white silhouette or dark silhouette. You can change how they appear. You can make them transparent. At a certain point it becomes transparent, I think. And you can do all those things with if you don't want realistic people, you can do that as well. Then we have other outdoor elements. If you double click on it, you can see these other outdoor elements. There are furniture, buildings, even you can add buildings that you want to add. If you're creating an urban scene and such, you can add these. Just look at what you have, the options that you have. One of the important things for you for this project is adding lights. So we have a bunch of lights here, and we'll look at how to add those lights, especially for the light fixture that we created. You can add these lights in, and you can go, there are omni lights, there are just spotlights you can add, there are area lights that you can add, different utilities that you can add. So we'll look at how to add the lights especially for the lighting fixture that we brought in. We can add those in. If you want to add sound, like ambient sound, you can add that in as well. Like if you're designing a train station, you can add that ambient sound thing. Let's see, people. So you can add those soundscapes to give it more realistic effect. There are other effects like fountains you can add, fire effects like the particle effects that we saw in Unity. You can add those in. Then the smoke effects, then the fogs, then the leaves. So you can add leaves blowing around. Looks weird, leaves blowing in the same position. But you have those things that you can add as well, so that's pretty cool. There are leaves that you can, different types of leaves that you can add. Then you have all important furniture elements. In this exercise, for this assignment particularly, you need to bring in a couple of pieces of furniture, but for the rest you can bring additional furniture here from this gallery as well. So if you need additional furniture to furnish your small cottage, you can bring in additional furniture options from this Lumion panel as well. But you need to have at least three pieces of furniture that you created that you add into the small cottage. But other than that, you can add these. Plumbing fixtures, you have a whole bunch of stuff that you can add. Lighting, so many things in the object panel, and then you can select all the categories and and these are the things that we'll talk about later: mask placement and cluster placement of different objects. What was that? That was a badminton court. Was it a tennis court? I don't know. But that's the gist of adding objects in this panel. If you go onto this side, you have build, so you'll be in the build mode, and then you have photograph. When you render a picture, we'll look at that. You can create a movie, you can create panoramas, and then you can save your file. So those are the basic functions of Lumion, and in the next video we'll bring in our small cottage. I'll show you the things that you need to do in order to bring in your small cottage, and then we'll see how we go step by step creating that small cottage inside of Lumion, adding materials and such.